Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Anissa Avon, and I am thrilled to welcome you to another talk inside our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit, sponsored by Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. This is all about actionable business and HR strategies for navigating crisis and change. So we're thrilled to have you with us. And today I'm excited about having expert speaker and executive coach, Kim Zilliox, with us. Hello, Kim.
Hello.
So glad you could join us. I'm really looking forward to learning more about navigating 2020 with Serenity and Strength. So thank you. So before we begin, I want to quickly say thank you to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, the entire summit, which now we've got nearly 70 speakers, it's started in March as just a how can we help, and now it's gone all the way through July, and I feel like it's something that has created a very meaningful impact in a lot of ways. And so I want to say thank you to David Whitmarsh and his team at the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. They are a group of HR niche marketers who are really exceptionally qualified in the area of multi-channel marketing. If you or your team would benefit from a marketing specialist, I highly recommend you reach out to David, tell him that I mentioned his name and gave him a good recommendation. Also want to say thank you to some of our internal team that have put together some pretty comprehensive training and development and coaching programs specifically for some of the needs of 2020. One of which is we've taken our diversity and inclusivity program and we've dusted it off and revised it to be appropriate for what's going on in our world today. So if you or your team are reevaluating how you're going to approach your D&I goals for 2020 and beyond, and your culture development goals, whether it is in assessing the needs or training or coaching or targeted development, or even some of our clients are doing discussion circles just in support of all levels of communication and discussion. So I would welcome the opportunity to support you in your goals with that. A little bit about me. My name is Anissa Avon, and I am the CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. We are a single point of contact learning and development firm. We have expert trainers and coaches like Kim in every major metropolitan area in the U.S. and in key hubs globally. And we specialize in single point solutions, including outplacement services and virtual training, leadership development, executive coaching, and even management consulting and OD consulting. So that leads me to introducing you to Kim. Kim is the founder of KZ Leadership, and she has tremendous experience, not the least of which is Kim holds a master's degree in business administration. She also has a master's degree in career counseling. She is an author, a certified coach, and a master facilitator. Kim has more than 20 years of experience with executive coaching and management consulting. She is, in every sense of the word, from her passion to her experience, a leadership expert. Her background includes sales and sales management, and she is even a sought-after trainer of trainers. So in her variety of roles, both as a consultant and in her former career, she has the experience to bring to this topic on navigating the roller coaster of 2020. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say, thank you, Kim. Share with us what we're going to learn today.
Wow. Well, I'll just say that's one of the best intros I've ever had. So thank you so much for that. That felt great.
Yeah.
All right, so let me pop up my PowerPoint here. And I'm so excited to be here today. I'm assuming you can see it, just validating that, right?
Yeah, let me double check. Yes, that's yours.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, so it's so exciting to be here with everybody that's, not only joining us live, but that will be reviewing this replay later. So when I thought about speaking for the summit and everything that y'all are doing at Turnkey here for the summit, I thought about, okay, speaking in the beginning of July, where are we going to be? Where are my clients right now? What am I seeing? And what I've seen, of course, over the last 4.5 months is incredible resiliency, incredible reactivity, incredible handling and responding to all the change that we've been going through. And what my clients are really looking for now is they're looking towards the rest of 2020.
That's right.
And really that inspiration of how can we get through that with some strength, with a little bit of serenity, and really
Yes.
kind of be proactive in navigating the rest of 2020. So that's what
Exactly.
the design of today is about. You'll
That's
see the
perfect.
backdrop of the roller coaster. That's on purpose because
Paige
this is, I
says
mean, any change experience is a roller
that is
coaster.
exactly it. I do think that we're not seeing your screen now. Paige just gave us
Okay.
a little bit of feedback. So if
Okay.
you will share your screen again, and I think what I
This
was
is funny.
looking at earlier
We
was
tested this uh, not 5 minutes ago and it worked just fine, but let me reshare it.
you bet.
I'll just go in this way. All right.
Now it's coming up, Kim.
And now I'll pop it. Okay, great.
Yep,
Thank you for that.
you bet.
You never know. Technology's great when it works and not when it doesn't. So anyway, so basically all that was just a backdrop to see, or an introduction to say that you see the roller coaster slide now in front of you, and any change experience that we go through is a bit of a roller coaster. And then of course, especially 2020, there's a bit of a double loop. So we're going to talk about the roller coaster that we've been on and how we continue to ride it for the rest of the year with some strength and serenity.
Yeah.
So first, I'd love for people to just think about what have you experienced already? So you can chat it in privately, write it down, chat it publicly if you want. What emotions and thoughts have you experienced over the last 4.5 months and since all of this first hit us?
Well,
So
you
just take it.
are your word cloud here, and we're going to get some of those in the chat as well. Really represents, we've got anxiety coming up, sad, lonely. For me, it's been isolated, not seeing my family, worry, depression, and even feeling naughty at times. Like we went out on the boat a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm really a bad person,
Such a
So
good point.
there's some
Yeah.
difficulty on all sides of this equation.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Confused, powerless. I love
Powerless.
that. So yeah, and I did want to little prime it a little bit here by putting in some of these thoughts and emotions in the word cloud. It's just really important always, but especially as we navigate through change, to take a step back and reflect on what have we been through and sort of process that to be able to move forward. So perfect, fantastic. Continue to think about that. One of the reasons that I start with that exercise is that it's a great foundational exercise for self-awareness, which is an important function and strength and skill of emotional intelligence. So with all of my one-on-one clients, with most of the organizations I work with, I talk about emotional intelligence. I know that in this summit, you've covered this topic frequently, so we're not going to dive into it deeply. It's just always an important sort of foundational backdrop to talk about, especially as we work through the process of change. So just a reminder, any questions you have or any work you want to do on emotional intelligence, I highly encourage it. Self-awareness, that first step is what we just kind of started with, is what are my emotions and thoughts and feelings? What have I been through and where am I at today? So we're going to cover a lot of that in today's conversation. Also moving into self-management, which is what we do with our emotions and our thoughts. So managing ourselves well. So I'm imagining there's going to be lots of, there are lots of leaders and maybe influencers right now viewing this and listening to recording. We know that what we do impacts others tremendously. So we need to make sure that we're managing ourselves well. Of course, then moving into that social awareness, being aware of what's going on for others, what has been going on for them, and meeting them where they're at. And then finally, that relationship management, which is really pulling all those together to work with others well and positively and proactively. And really, like I say here, be a great and amazing influencer and leader. So I can't help but start with that little backdrop for our conversation today.
Agreed. Beautiful.
Fair enough? Okay.
Yes.
So with that, let's move into change. And I wanted to just find out from the folks that are at least here live listening,
Yeah.
how much have you studied already around the topic of change and change management? So you can either type in, the words, you can type in the letter A through D. So
Well,
whether it's just not much, a
yeah.
little bit, a
Thank
fair
you,
amount,
everyone,
or
for joining in. What I was going to share with you is because a lot of our clients and peers are in the HR space.
yep,
We are pretty savvy around change management.
yep,
And that's what's kind of coming in the chat. A whole lot.
good,
A
good.
lot.
Okay, so it depends on, I speak with to a lot of organizations on the topic of change. Some have studied it a bit, some a lot. So it kind of goes across the board, and this is great because for those of you who already have a great understanding, here are just some reminders, right? That leaders and influencers, how you respond will of course guide others. We know that, right? That's, people will follow based on our kind of energy and attitudes. Always a good reminder for those of us who tend to put others first, to put on your own oxygen mask. I know it's ironic because masks are the topic these days, but put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help others. I actually think, to speak frankly about that, now more than ever, right? If we're not healthy, if we're not sane, if we're not finding some peace and serenity, we are not going to be able to be there for others. And I don't know about you, Anissa, but that is what I'm seeing in some of my clients and some of my HR partners. It's been a tough road over the last 4.5 months. And so I will say that the big part of today's talk is a big gift to them, I hope. Just a reminder, as we know, for those of you who have studied this topic a lot, that many times leaders, influencers find out about change first. Not always, but they're at least often a step ahead of the people that they inform. So even things like everyone's going to work from home. Some my HR partners knew that before. Obviously, they marshaled the troops to get them ready to work from home. So I put a visual of my model here that I use for the change experience, just so we can have a visual here. Many of the models kind of look like this, but if we look through the curve as people walk through the change experience, oftentimes leaders and influencers are sort of ahead on that change curve. So it's a great reminder that just to remember that anytime someone hears about a change, the minute they hear about it, that red star, that's where they are at. So we have to allow them time to process and go through the change process. So we're going to talk about the detail in a little bit, but we know that the culture of any organization is a result of actions and attitudes from everybody within the organization, but especially the leaders and major influencers in the organization. So I love to talk about culture and how to be proactive in creating it. And I think today, hopefully that will impact your culture positively. So with that, I want to go through the stages. And what I did is I took I took the basic foundations of change and just really layered them specifically onto what we've gone through the last 4.5 months, or through a 2020 lens. And I really want to encourage you all, again, with your own oxygen mask, go through this the first time for yourself. I don't know about you. I don't know how many people sit and reflect on an ongoing basis about their experience and allow themselves time to process. Not one of my clients really does that naturally. So today is an opportunity to really honestly do that for yourself. And then we'll circle back around and make sure that you're doing it well for your people. Okay. So with that, step one is this sort of baffled, confused, what is going on? What is this thing that we're hearing about? Will it affect us? What is it? Remember back 4.5 months ago, we kind of went through that. Quickly moved into that anxiety and fear, which we all know that's where we've got this, sign on our forehead saying, what's in it for me? That's, how is this going to affect me? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have a reduced income? Am I going to be furloughed? Am I going to be able to supply for my family? Now what's going on with my kids home? How am I going to be able to work and have my kids in school, right? What's going on with my family, my friends? All that anxiety, fear, unknown come rushing in soon after that. So then that next phase is we stay a little bit in the bargaining and denial phase of, do we really need to be doing all this? Is it really going to hit us here? Do we have to wear these masks? Do we have to stay home? Anytime a change comes, all those questions come in, and I don't really feel like I need to do that. It's not that bad. Then of course the resentment, that anger and resentment, which hit pretty hard. And that's, kind of where we're all at about a month ago. And the Black Lives Matter, all those events just sort of layered on top of it of, I don't like this. I don't like what's going on. I didn't choose it. I don't want it. I don't want to do what they're telling me to do. And anything from, they shouldn't tell me to do it, or they should be telling us different things and more. So lots of pointing fingers at this stage. So finally, as we look at that curve, that change curve, the bottom is really, it can be looked at as depression. Certainly funk. I know you said depression earlier, Anissa. That's just really where we're in the middle of it. And it's just, this is hard. Like I said before, I didn't choose it. I don't want it. I don't like it. And I have sort of less energy around it. And like you said, I feel isolated in this particular situation. I feel lonely. I miss what was. With any change, that's going to go on, especially right here at this phase. With any change, what goes down will come up, as we know eventually. So acceptance is really that first step out of the change. This is where we start to look at, okay, this is the way it is. I do have to stay inside. I do have to manage who I'm around and socially distance myself, wear the masks or whatever the change is. I can handle it. I can self-regulate. I'm an adult. I'm a professional. This is the beginning of kind of coming out of it positively. And then finally, or second to last, moving into serenity, of really finding peace on a daily basis inside of the loss and the chaos.
Yeah.
So it is actually possible to have peace on a consistent basis, even on that roller coaster that you're seeing right now, even inside of the loss and the chaos. And, we all know that there's more to come. We're, nowhere near through the end of this. And so just, it's an incredible skill to develop to be able to find peace throughout all of it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it. And then really where we want to get to soon is or at least by the end of the year, is I've got my mojo back. I understand what's happened. I reflected on it. I've learned from it. And I've learned and we're going to fill in the blanks, but resilient, powerful, strong, adaptive, all those fantastic words.
I have a quick question for you, and you can tell me if we're going to cover this in a little bit.
Sure.
Part of 2020 is that it's 20 times 20 crises. We have COVID, we have racial unrest, we've had it started the year with the Australian bushfires, and then the sand in the Sahara coming in, and people getting sick in America, from what's happening over there. And then there's been floods, and there's other unrest in India. And for heaven's sakes, wasn't it Iran that shot down a civilian plane just a few weeks ago? I mean, that alone would have been, oh my God, are we going to war? So my question is, it's one thing to have an awareness about where I am with a singular crisis. How does a person be aware with where they are when there's a domino effect of crises? Does this apply in that regards as well?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I love how you said that, 20 times 20. It's obviously been the biggest year that any of us have ever experienced. I mean, even when I talk to the, grandparents and folks that have been through a lot, this is really compounded this year. And so, the only thing I can say is, because I happen to be a little bit of a Pollyanna, is we are learning well how to be resilient. I mean, this topic of resiliency has sort of emerged over the last few years of being so important and something that we want to teach our next generation. Well, guess what? We are getting that training on steroids this year of this whole process, and yes, we'll walk through a little bit more of it, but things happen, you react, you respond, and you move forward. You process and you move forward. And it's just fascinating. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't experience all those emotions, and it's definitely been,
So it
I don't know what word to use for the year. An interesting year is usually what I say.
it sounds like it's also essential for us to be aware that with every new level of crises, or with every new crises, or every new trauma, we may have to go through this stage or this cycle multiple times. It's an iterative process with each
Yes.
crisis, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't say this because, like you said, many people have studied this before, but of course we know that this change curve, the process, started with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's
Yes.
work on death and dying. So our response to loss, and then Bridges, work on transition. So it's all kind of predicated upon how human beings respond every time there is a loss, whether they chose it, whether it's good, it's bad. We just kind of always cycle through this. And if we try to jump across, that on my model, try to jump across, it just won't work.
Yes.
But we can become facile at working through it faster. And honestly, one of the things that I love talking to leaders about, and the reminder, and influencers, is that you have to realize that everyone else will go through it in their own time. You've got to be mindful of it, that they do need to process.
That's powerful.
Yeah. Great. So I did want to find out, and maybe I'll ask you, Anissa, and anyone else can write in, is where are you today? So just look, just today, like you said, things happen every day. Where would you say you're at in this process, one
For
through eight?
myself, I'm in a place of acceptance
Yep.
around some of the crises. COVID, for example, my son, we will find out later today if he's positive. He just had to go get tested. And then in other with take for example the racial unrest, I'm angry about what people are experiencing and the conversations, and I feel passionate about it, and I think it's over time. And so it's interesting that you can actually be in different stages of growth, even emotional intelligence,
Yep.
as we process through this.
It's so true, isn't it? Yeah. And for any of the changes, you could be in a different place. And yes, as we all know, you can, this is not a linear thing. You don't necessarily go from 1 through 8.
Thank you for saying that.
The
Yeah.
exact order, you can go backwards. So yeah, the important part is that awareness. And I love, and I love people wrote in, depression to acceptance, so kind of 5 to 6, or 6 to 7, but can bounce to a 2 really fast. So yeah, I get you. I really do. And again, that's great self-awareness. And what I'm, and that is what I'm finding with my clients, of course, and, the people around me, is that, that's kind of where we're at right now, is that 5 to maybe 6, understanding. And I think by now it's, pretty well known. I will say I knew early on that it was going to be, a year and a half type thing, because of some of my clients, but I now I think we all know that, we're definitely in this for the long haul, and, how can we accept what is and move forward? So perfect. Good. Thank you. That's where we're at right now, is that beautiful self-awareness. And then let's move into some self-management, which is really, how can we try to move ourselves up the right side of the curve, and then maybe support our people in doing so. So Serenity, fantastic topic. I always go to the dictionary, right? The definition of the state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. I don't know about you, just reading that makes me a little bit more calm, peaceful, and untroubled. It also reminds me that I'm not that as much as the time as I want to be, even though I can find it. It would be fantastic to find that even more and more. So we'll talk about how to do that. A lot of people know about, and they've sort of heard the Serenity Prayer because of 12-step work, sort of took on the work of Niebuhr, a theologist who really, starting in about 1937, he would speak and write about his definition of serenity being the courage to change what needs to be altered, right? What must be altered, the serenity to accept what can't be helped, and the insight to know one from another. And really, if you look at it, this is kind of life. This is what we're called to do in life, is, figure out in any situation. And I have a little bit of I don't know if it's coaching, Anissa, you didn't ask for this, but I just have a suggestion. Is
Please.
I'm so big on words. I would even change the word crisis
Yeah.
to situation.
I agreed.
So yeah, for
Yeah.
obvious reasons that, just the word crisis kind of has us,
Does.
react in a certain way, versus these are, and I'm not saying that they're not huge and gravely important, especially what you're dealing with today. Just words are so important.
They are important.
So
Anyone that has studied neurolinguistics programming knows we respond to words emotionally and physically,
yeah.
and that is sage advice to pick our words wisely.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about, so believe it or not, this simple, insight that he created and shared and that has become so popularized is so powerful. So I just really want to ask everyone, kind of listening to this right now, what have you changed that needed to be changed this year? I mean, obviously we could talk for 10 minutes about this, but what have you, and part of that, a big part is yourself. How have you changed yourself? So I want people to just, reflect on what have you changed that needed to be changed this year? And I'll just put the rest of the questions up so people can kind of reflect. How have you accepted what can't be helped, i.e. changed? And then what wisdom have you shown to know the difference?
So I have a question for you. These
Yeah.
are really powerful questions for someone to self-reflect on. Is part of your recommendation is that someone process through these as an intentional effort to move towards serenity?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Right. There's actually a lot of this is reflection today. I don't always do as much reflection. I just think that this is so powerful right now.
Yeah.
If you can really look at, so you have life, right? And you have things in control in your life, in your locus of control, things that you can act on, and then things that aren't in your locus of control that you can't act on. One of the reasons that this is just so powerful to look at is that is our experience in life. And when we can distinguish that and kind of have the courage, right? Take the action where we need to take it and then let go of the rest, there is peace. I mean, that is actually the second part. Both of them are part of the equation. I find with my clients that the second part is really the bigger part that they can gain from, is what they can just let go. When to know enough is enough. You've given it your all. You've tried to change what you can change. You've said what you need to say. You've taken the action that you need to take. And then you just need to let go of the rest because it's causing a tremendous amount of, negativity in your world. Yeah. Yeah.
We have a couple of responses in the chat. Found security within myself and know it's going to be okay.
Mm.
Also, I have also learned to embrace change and be an advocate for it.
Beautiful.
And then also, I have changed my ability to feel in control of uncontrollable circumstances.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just, kind of add, I mean, I even look at our technology, what have we all learned to do to figure out even something like this Zoom or working from home or, our communication with others, how we lead virtually. So, so much that we've, learned to navigate and change. And we've had the courage to do that, even if we didn't want to. And then we've also, the biggest part is learning that, wow, we are, we need to just respond to what's going on and be okay with it and learn to adapt to it. Beautiful. Okay, so good. So I encourage you to do that serenity exercise for yourself often. And then let's move into building strength, because that's kind of where we all want to get to by the end of the year, even in sight of all this. So let's talk about maybe some ideas that we might have to do that. So first of all, I go to the Webster's Dictionary of Strength. One of them is the capacity to withstand great force or pressure. I just don't even know a better definition for what we've all been through so far this year. We are still standing or sitting, whatever the case may be, but we have withstood great force, great pressure, whether it's to change, our working styles, whether it's employees that just didn't want to do what they were being asked to do or aren't right now, to all of the social unrest, to everything, all that force and pressure. We're strong, we're really, really strong individuals, everyone listening to this right now. So I want you to take a look at, again, some more reflection on how have you demonstrated strength this year. So other questions that will kind of help you with that are, what have you done that you've never done before? So I mentioned just a minute ago, Zoom. I sold this technology 20 years ago and it was hard enough for people to figure out. Now it's a little easier, but it's different. People that weren't using this type of technology, this type of communication, congratulations. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to feel comfortable with on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, working virtually, working remotely with people, how do you communicate? How do you, get the message across? I'm sure you've done so much that you didn't have to do previously. What did you do that you thought you couldn't? I love that question. That's where that huge courage comes in, and strength. I didn't think I could figure all this out. I didn't think I could marshal the troops so quickly. I will say what came up as an example for me is I have a client that within 3 days, marshaled 1,200 of their employees to remote to be able to work from home. And I know that's not a unique situation. That's just what companies did across the board. So amazing from an, HR and IT standpoint.
Yes.
What are you proud of yourself for? Again, I don't know about you. Many of my HR partners and leaders don't often stop and ask themselves what they're proud of themselves for. It's important. First of all, you want to model that behavior for others, but I really want to ask you, what are you? And Anissa, by the way, in a minute, I can't wait to ask you, because you should be proud of yourself for a lot. What are you proud of yourself for? And then finally, or two more things. What have you learned that you'll take with you forever? Because we've all learned things in the last 4 months that we will take forever, that are valuable and, jewels for our career and life. And then I just really want you to fill in this blank. Is I learned I am, resilient, strong, flexible, adaptable, powerful, a leader, et cetera, however you want to fill in that blank in terms of what you've learned about yourself. So with that, I want to give people, time to kind of process those questions. While they do that, Anissa, do you want to answer any of them for yourself?
You bet. You bet. Let's see. What have you done that you have never done before? What did you do that you thought you couldn't? What are you most proud of for yourself? What have you learned that you will take with you forever? And I learned. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is, how when life is normal and business is normal, you go about building something new. And you think, I can do this in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is. You grab something out of the air, and that's exactly how much time it takes, times 2, right? You think, I can get this done in 3 months, and suddenly a year out, you're still working on it. Well, what I learned is that with a little bit of urgency, you can condense anything you want to get done in a very short amount of time. So literally in like 6 weeks, my team launched a summit. We've had over, I think the last number was 50,000 views on the videos in a matter of just a few months. They've launched 6 new product lines. We've created 3 or 4 new partnerships. We're creating a career course that you're going to work with us on. And, the point being is all of that would have taken years to create. That suddenly, magically, we had the capacity to do it in weeks instead of months.
So true, isn't it? Yeah, it's actually a little scary.
It is. Now what?
A year ago, we were already in, hey, we're working pretty hard here.
Yes.
Let's continue to get back to some, boundaries and some balance. And now all of a sudden we learn that, we can do more with less. So, but definitely a positive, and I do agree that people have learned that, especially meetings, right? Do they need to be hour long? Can they just be quicker than that? What are our structures? Do people need to spend 3 hours commuting in traffic? Yeah, probably not. That's a great learning moment.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So good. Okay, good. Beautiful. All right. So that's really, what I know I want, the gift that I want to give to people is just, find that serenity, find that strength in what you've accomplished over this time, who you are, what you can do, what you can create. So I want each of you to take that with you. And if we could just take a moment, I would like everybody, if you're proud of yourself in some form or fashion from this year, raise your hand high, straight up in the air, right? Now bend it and pat yourself on the back.
So from both sides. Love it. Well, I think that that's
So
an important piece of this, and you mentioned it early on.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've got to be able to acknowledge ourselves. And, we're going to move into just reflecting on all of this about our people. But you have to be able to stop and just, acknowledge yourself. And I don't know, I'm hoping this is not the case. I've just seen some, HR, there's still a lot of stress, of course, in organizations. And, HR leaders, my partners, they're not always acknowledged for everything that they do for the organization and how much they care for their people. And, so that's where I get to do a lot of work is you've got to acknowledge each other and yourself because you're doing the right thing. Your leaders are stressed and focusing on so many other things. They don't always stop to do that. So first acknowledge yourself for what you've done. It's not arrogant. It's appropriate.
Yeah.
And now we get to, finally now we get to turn to help others with their mask. Okay. So different mask from the airplane. Others help putting their oxygen masks. So now, it's really important as leaders and as influencers that we stop, reflect, look, where are each one of my people in the process? I think we do this pretty naturally. It's just a really good exercise if you're not already doing this, that you need to, or you can help your leaders know to do this, is just to really look at that process 1 through 8. Where are they in the process? And probably ask them authentically where they might be in that process. And have you authentically acknowledged them? Acknowledgement is not actually as natural. So I sometimes for leaders, right, we're so focused on what needs to get done, what isn't done. We need to remember that 3-to-1 ratio, 3 positives to 1 constructive. And this is just a really good opportunity to acknowledge people for what they've been through. Their world has been turned upside down. They're still surviving and they're contributing to your organization. So whatever that looks like for them, whether they're, underworked or overworked, because there's 2 extremes right now going on. How have you demonstrated that it will be okay? So of course we talked about earlier that leadership, that, the influencer kind of swan on the surface, paddling quickly underneath,
Yes.
but showing them that it will be okay. Have you over communicated? So I don't think I emphasized this as much in the beginning because of how much we've all been through the change process. But, we all know that in the marketing world, they say we need to hear the jingle 7 times. People need to hear that message 7 to 8 times to have it really sink in and get it. I find this is why communication is such a broad topic. I deliver it all the time. And I really encourage leaders and influencers over communicate. Just when you think you've said something, beat something to death, if you will, or said something too many times, is kind of when they're first getting it. So it's funny that it's a shock each time it happens, and I will just put in that one of the main reasons that happens is that I was a leader. We talk across, we talk up, we talk even, to our spouse or to a colleague or something. We talk about a topic so many times. By the time we sort of deliver it down with the message that we want to deliver, in our head, we've had that conversation 5 or 6 times. In reality, it's the first time they're hearing it.
That's right.
And then you layer on that we miss messages. It takes 3 to 8 times for us to hear it. So anyway, over communicate what you would like people to do, what the next direction is, maybe what their new roles and responsibilities are, what you know about what will happen in the future. I think I've over communicated my message enough right now on that topic.
Good communication.
And then, let's just move into these last 2 where how can you help them find some serenity? Maybe teach them that skill of, taking action where they can take action in their little circle of control, and then what there is to let go. And then that strength, right? Really just helping them pull out where they're strong. We forget that people show up every day to work to do their best. And if we don't remind them that they are doing their best and we appreciate that and where we're seeing their best, we're not doing our best. So little reminders there about helping them with their masks. So I love it. We've covered a lot in the last 35 minutes, from processing our experience to, the reminder of emotional intelligence, kind of the whole reminder of the change curve process, and then specific eight stages that we've been through over the last 4.5 months. I would love any questions, comments, shares from anything that we've gone over so
Well,
far.
I have been sitting on quite a few questions.
Okay.
One of the things that I am witnessing in some of our clients and what have you is that self-awareness itself isn't always enough to recognize where a person is in their own process of change, in their own process of processing through the 2020 situations. So let's take, for example, let's say you have a person has a manager who is stuck in one of these stages that is not healthy, but they themselves, the subordinate, is recognizing that they're moving more towards strength and serenity and acceptance, and perhaps that's feeling like a conflict
Yeah.
when the manager thinks they don't have enough urgency or they're not managing things with enough seriousness, as an example. How I'd like to hear your coaching feedback, your expert feedback on how does someone that's a subordinate communicate up around this issue in an effective way, and vice versa.
I love that. Ah, what a great topic. First of all, I would say, hey, I just saw this webinar that I think you should check
Right.
out. It's pretty great. So
We
pass
got a
along this
free
information.
free replay and download. So
Right, right. It'll be available on the web soon. So yeah, and I mean, obviously, I say that jokingly. Plenty of people say, "Let me have your card." Let me put it on my manager's desk. Well, let's be a little bit more direct about it. And look, none of us know everything. And you're right. Self-awareness has a blind side, right? It has a blind spot. So we all need help from others, no matter where they are in the organization or who they are. And yeah, I speak a lot of partnering up, right? It's, partnering up is helping your leader. I don't care what it is. I don't care if they don't know the technical aspects of your role, and that's fine. And you just need to give them some information, or helping them through this process. So I personally would recommend, just off the top of my head, honestly sharing, gosh, I just, saw, viewed a webinar and looked at the process of change, and I just wanted to talk to you about it and see, kind of get your thoughts around it, where you think you are, where I think I am, where you think I am.
that's
you know
brilliant. Mm-hmm.
just kind of talk about this process. And I don't think I think initiating that conversation can go a long way,
Yeah.
and helping them kind of take a look. And obviously we both know that, or we all know that sometimes in the moment, people are not always able to sort of admit things, or own up to aspects of their part. Sometimes, but a lot of times they do in reflection,
Yeah.
and then it shows up later. So I think just starting the conversation and some thoughts about it would go a long way. It's a great question.
It's a really, really good point. So now let's go from the leader, who, something that you said earlier, it's really important for a leader to model that it's going to be okay, to demonstrate and communicate, we're going to get through this, even if it looks different than we originally thought going into this year. Um, how can a manager take these concepts and work with their team on them? What would they do first to just introduce them and then begin to foster a culture that can have these kinds of discussions? Because this isn't a normal discussion for
Right.
most organizations.
Yeah, and I would expect that some, obviously these conversations are happening, right? It's just you've got to respond and do what you can. But I just think that really focusing in that strength of serenity is really focusing on what can we do. I mean, look, I work with a lot of sales organizations, and I have a background in sales, and we all know in the sales world, all you can do is your side,
Yeah.
right? Take it, back to that 12-step program, your side of the street, right? So all you can do is take action, and the action that you know to take. Be smart about it, be savvy about it, but keep moving forward with what you can control. And then the rest, you've got it. The rest you have to have faith, or it will happen, or it won't. But you can only do what you can do. And worrying about it, or stressing about it, or focusing on what isn't happening isn't going to help the
Yeah.
situation at all. So I think those are the conversations that need to be had. And when I say, it will be okay, it, it doesn't necessarily mean, our company will triple their revenue and everybody will stay employed. And that's, I'm not promising that. I'm just saying we all have the ability, we will survive. And
Yeah.
we just need to keep taking the next right step forward. And we'll do the best possible that we can do. Helpful?
It is, it's very helpful. And now it reminds me of if we take this organizationally, right? So we've talked about the subordinate needing to have the dialogue, and we've talked about the leader having to represent and model. Um, there's also a situation in where organizations are having to bump up against their own values, bump up against their own policies, figure out how to over communicate at the same time they are figuring out how to save the company, for example.
Yeah.
So my question around that is, let's say as an organization, the temperature is we're not getting enough attention as employees. You guys aren't taking this seriously enough. I happen to know some organizations that they meant well, but the way in which they've managed it are leaving employees feeling like you don't care about us at all. Complete gaffe, unintentional, but
Yeah.
a problem nevertheless. What does an organization do now to address it and move their organization towards acceptance, serenity, and strength?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really great question. And, for anyone who studies human dynamics and, knows what happens in organizations and especially around change,
Yeah.
that's such a natural reaction. Unfortunately, it's a natural reaction. Remember, we all have that, what's in it for me. That's from sales with on everybody's forehead. So really, no matter what, often employees can often fall into that sort of trap or that thinking. They don't care about us. It's all about the company. Honestly, when I coach those employees that are kind of thinking that way, I say, yes, it is about the company. That's who's paying your paycheck. And if they go out of existence, you no longer have a paycheck. So yes, it has to be about the health of the organization first.
That's right.
And then making sure that we're a healthy organization, that we can keep all the employees that we can. Right. So, we've got to kind of have some maturity about that, I think, in terms of doing the right thing for an organization. I think, and again, that's the reason for over communicating in the beginning for any change management, initiative that people put forward is, you really are our priority, and kind of that message of we have to do both at the same time. I think at this point in time, that's all you can do is say, we needed to make these changes to make the organization the healthiest and strongest as possible, to make sure it's here in the future for you to work for, and you're a valued member. That's why you're still with us. That's why we made the decisions that we made. We want you to, be here. We want you to contribute, sort of, that definition of engagement, of peak contribution, peak satisfaction. We want both. And, let's just work on that. And I would move into appreciation, quite frankly, if people were feeling that way of, let's talk about, what you're appreciative of. Let's talk about what is working for you here. What do you enjoy about the organization and the mission and what we're driving towards, just to help people kind of turn around their attitude a little bit.
Yeah. So so the prescription is address it.
Yeah.
Address it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
real
there.
Conversations about it.
If you don't address it, it'll just fester. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, and when you address it, is there a methodology for supporting folks that don't normally have the concept around these 8 stages, that, hey, we as a culture, we as a company are going to go through this? Have you seen leaders actually teach this, EQ coupled with these 8 stages effectively?
Oh yeah. I've worked with a few organizations where I just have been, lucky enough or whatever to be able to deliver actually both of these topics, emotional intelligence and change management, to the entire organization that was going through change. And we did 2 rounds of it. So we did sort of level 1 and level 2, level 1 for both in the beginning, level 2 for both mid. And that organization, it is one of the 2 that I'm thinking of right now. They're sort of through the change and they're thriving. They get it. They've been through it. It's the new normal. They've communicated the whole way. So it's just so important to be able to process these emotions. And in those initial workshops, there was a lot of processing, and we knew there was going to be a lot of complaining and a lot of, either anger, resentment, kind of bargaining, denial, depression, kind of that was there when people first heard of these changes. It was a huge organization that I'm thinking of. And because they were able to process it along the way, and we just kept working with them, they got through it. And honestly, anyone, like there were a few people toward the end that were holding on to it, and the organization took care of that, right? It's sort of, this is our culture. We're not going to, we're over here now on this side of the curve. You know, you need to move with us. And
Yeah.
a couple
Or
people
not, right?
yeah, a couple people didn't. They, you know, people will
right.
opt out because
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it won't work. So, yeah, I mean, it's so important. It's so important, and I've seen it where I've come in later and tried to help organizations that just didn't set that up. It's really difficult.
It's much more difficult after the fact, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that leads me to the other question is what happens when an organization tries to go from, this is going to affect us. Don't worry. We'll get through it. I know you guys are afraid, but stay with us. And they just kind of skip over acknowledging the other emotions. And they just want people to go straight towards, what do you mean your kids aren't going back to school? The schools are opening. You don't have a choice. You know, they just skip back to get over it. We're strong again. What happens to an organization when that middle change component is not allowed to happen?
It's not good. So remember earlier I talked about the roller coaster and how what goes down, most of the time what goes down will come up.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, if you try to skip from the beginning to the end, so try to jump that dip, the roller coaster will go back down. So you will have employees that will just sit in the bottom there of despair, depression, resentment, anger. You know, what I've seen, unfortunately, with some of the clients I've been pulled into is obviously, you know, attrition. So people will leave and, you know, they might not leave under the urgency. So this happened in 2001 a lot as well. In, you know, the .com situation, but they will leave as soon as it opens up and there will be mass exodus, right? So they might stay and be resistant, but you know that you won't be getting the most out of them. You won't be getting the best out of them. They'll pull others down that might've been inching up. I hate to be so doom and gloom about it. So, you know, it is difficult. I think if an organization is finding themselves in that situation right now, lots of one-on-one conversations to just kind of, let's process back. Let's go through the steps. Let's see, you know, what are you experiencing? We know that, you know, you've got to be an open door, especially at the beginning of a change, and let people just speak to where they are and speak to their fears and kind of meet people where they're at. There's, you know, yes, we want to be a role model that we will get to a positive place, but it's not, we'll get there now or without some, you know, rich conversations.
That's really, really helpful. So what I just heard you say is if an organization gains insight and awareness that perhaps we haven't managed this well, we have left some of our employees in the dip, in the denial, anger, depression, and we're expecting them to get over it, we need to go back. And ways to do that include lots of one-on-one conversations, bringing out these 8 stages, having authentic conversations about it. How can organizations, for example, use EQ 2.0 to even train their leaders on managing this?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, this is my favorite book on emotional intelligence because Travis has done such a great job at structuring the strategies, all the things I used to tell my clients, now they're in a book. So I think, you know, using a topic like emotional intelligence, whether you want to, you know, bring someone in or like myself or facilitate it on your own.
No, it's true. That's why clients hire you, Kim, is you are an expert in change and EQ.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, you know, I think educating, so I just did a workshop for someone yesterday on this, but educating the entire organization on the topic. And then one thing that I'm going to do for them is monthly sessions on each one of the 4 areas. So where, you know, people do have homework to do, they show up, they've applied it, we're going to discuss it. So I've done that with a number of organizations of, you know, kind of book study situation, right? Where you facilitate the conversation. So it really, like any topic, if you don't, you know, go over it in detail and have it be a rich part of the culture, it's just going to be another thing that comes and goes. Most of the organizations I work with, you'll see these books on their desks as you walk around the organization, you know.
Hopefully they get opened from time to time, but yes. Well, this has been really fascinating, bringing the concepts around change and change development with emotional intelligence, I think is pretty unique to some of the work that you do. Will you share with folks how can they get a hold of you and tell us a little bit about your coaching and your workshops and why people hire you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so obviously, one-on-one coaching, whether executive leadership coaching, group coaching is being asked for more and more. I'm noticing, obviously, virtual workshops, which is great. Many companies are now comfortable with this sort of style of
Yes.
training and development. And then I do have a year-long leadership development program that I offer for leaders who want some rich development. I just wanted to share right now, my top 10 requested topics. Like you mentioned, emotional intelligence, of course, inclusion has come higher on the list,
Yes.
culture creation, communication, navigating change, clearly. Leadership 101, there's a lot of leaders coming in that just need that training on what is leadership and
Yeah.
what is, what do I need to do? Presentation skills, personality types, engagement, and empowerment and development. So those are kind of the main topics that I'm talking about right now. I could talk about anything as it regards to work pretty much or leadership, but those are some of my sweet spots, and people can get a hold of me by a phone call, old fashioned way, or by email, kim@kzleadership.com. I've got my website up there, and I will say for the rest of the year, for
Yes.
anyone who watches this replay or is watching live, I mean, absolutely anybody, I would love to help you and support you in any way. So, I put up here 20% discount,
Absolutely.
but for sure, I mean, I want to honor that. So just mention that you watch this workshop, and I'd love to be able to support you or your people.
Love it. So, and for those of you who are listening later, you can reach Kim at kzleadership.com. And that, of course, is also her website. So, Kim, thank you. That was really excellent. And I was going to show people how they can get a hold of Turnkey, but that is no longer available on my screen. So I'll just tell folks, you can get a hold of us at turnkeycoachingsolutions.com. Me personally is Nisa, Anisa, at turnkeycoachingsolutions.com. If we can put you in touch with Kim, we would be happy to. Kim, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Great questions.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Bye.
Bye.